This is Tony Alva. We're not in Santa Monica, we're in Malibu. And this is my buddy John's bowl that he built in his backyard up here near Trancas Point, which is like a pretty well-known surf spot, so now we got a place to skate as well.
First friends are always a little tricky.
How often? I've been surfing more than I skate lately, but I usually skate a couple days a week. It depends if we're on the road. A lot of times when I'm out on the road, especially with like the bus tour, or if we're in Europe or Australia or someplace, I skate every day. But usually when I'm at home, I'm surfing just about every day, and I skate on the better days, probably at least 2 or 3 days a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. Well, a lot of the pools that we skate nowadays are like permission pools. We don't trespass as much as we used to. There's a lot of pools, I mean, that, you know, some of the best pools that I've ever skated are really not built for skateboarding, which is pretty cool. So I think how it's changed more than anything is that we get to skate a lot of pools that were just made for skating, and that's the deal with John's pool and stuff too. You know, a lot of guys are designing their own pools in their backyards, and then also there's pools in skate parks too, which are really fun to skate. But the ultimate thrill really is to go into somebody's backyard and actually skate a pool that's not really made for skateboarding. So I'd say that's how it's changed most. The riding definitely has gotten better, but then back in the day, riding little boards with no pads and no gear, you know, for protection, it was pretty hardcore back then too. So I kind of miss the old days, but I sure like riding all the good pools that we have nowadays.
Hi, my name is Bucky Lassick. We're in Encinitas, California, and this is my backyard bowl. The bowl is about 80 feet by 75 feet, and it's 13 and a half feet deep. 11 and a half transition with 2 feet of vert, the biggest part, and then the round is 10-8 tranny with 2 feet of vert, and the shallow is 8-foot tranny, no vert. You could probably fit 6 to 7 of the Dogtown bowls in this one bowl. What made me go this big was the fact that I like skating vert and I like skating bowls. And everything out there is kind of small, so I would always find myself really hurting after a good bowl session, because when you fall, you go straight to flat, where you could pretty much skate vert every day and not really get tired. So I figured what better thing to have than a big vert tranny sized bowl.
So I heard he built like a really big bowl. I think maybe for Bucky and those guys, that's pretty good. Building pools that big, I don't know if it's necessary, but you know, if it's his property, it's his money, if that's what he wants to skate, more power to him. I say that's a pretty big pool though, like I think it's like 14 feet deep, so that's the biggest like backyard pool that I've heard of being built specifically for skateboarding. So, you know, I like stuff that's a little bit more like a real backyard pool, right between the 8 to 10 foot range, kind of steep transitions. Those big transitions like that are really hard to pump for some of us that are like real pool skaters. But I know that some of those guys that actually skate in competition are really good at riding those big transitions. So like I said, I mean, if that's what they want to skate, build it and ride it.
I see pool skating has changed dramatically from the boards that people have ridden to the actual bowl themselves and the style of skating. Back then it was, you know, a lot of carving around and just finding your way around the bowl and grinds and everything like that, and it was probably more adventurous, even just finding pools to ride, you know. Nowadays skate parks are everywhere and bowls are they're a lot bigger.
The skate park thing's coming back strong, and it gives an opportunity for kids to be able to skate like really good concrete parks that have good transitions. Like I said before, they're starting to make some really good pools in the skate parks. And you know, the half pipe thing has kind of died out a little bit, but I don't think vert skating's ever gonna die. But I think it's come to a point now where it's a little bit more versatile. And I think a lot of people are getting an opportunity to skate some really good concrete parks and stuff nowadays. So, you know, to me, as far as being a skateboarder, I think it's really important to be able to skate everything. And I'm not saying that everybody has to be able to do handrails and stuff, and I'm not saying that everybody has to be able to do like, you know, 5-6 foot airs out of like a vert ramp or whatever, but at least get out there and try, and at least like, you know, have an open mind when it comes to skateboarding, and all-terrain skaters are my favorite skaters.
Well, I mean, the first legend that comes to my mind when I think of pool skating is Tony Alva. He's pretty much the guru of pool skating.
Well, when we first started doing airs in pools, it was because we were just trying to do the same stuff that we do when we're surfing, and we were just hitting the lip as hard as we could. I remember the first time I did an aerial was basically by accident. I just kind of like popped out of the pool, and I was doing it tuck knee. So I just kind of brought my knees in close to my body, and as I came back down past the lip, I just kind of let go of the board and pushed it back out and landed it. And I guess from there, you know, it's similar to surfing, you know, everything just kind of evolved to the point where everybody that was like a really radical surfer or skateboarder had to include aerials in their repertoire. So the fact that I was one of the first guys to do it was kind of cool, because what it did for me was that it gave me a little bit of a head start on everybody. And also it kind of became a signature move as far as like my skateboarding goes. The front side tuck knee is pretty much like what I'm known for as far as like old school skateboarding goes. Well, modern day pool skating, there's a lot of really good pool skaters, no doubt. I think more than anything, it's just the one guy that's just killing it from day one and still skating like really good is Steve Alva. Probably another guy that's like still like ripping pretty hard, like Dave Duncan, still out there skating. Some of the big old school guys, Chris Miller comes to mind. Rune, if you watch Rune skate a pool, it's pretty amazing. But then some of the young guns, some of the guys like, you know, Tony Trujillo or Jimmy the Greek. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I could go on forever talking about all the guys that are just ripping pools.
I mean, when I think of bowl riding, I think of Rune Glifberg, and I think of you know, some of the guys like Peter Hewitt and Jeff Grosso and Tony Hawk, Del Mar. I almost want to say legend / up and comer is Chris Miller. By far, to date, out of all the guys, with Christian Asoy following, Chris Miller is definitely the man right now. Not only in this bowl, but in any concrete bowl park. He's probably got the best style on a skateboard, and just to watch him cruise around, it's amazing. He's seriously poetry in motion.
But I think really, you know, like what it comes down to is some of the guys like myself and Dave Hackett and a few other guys, we're one of the first guys to skate pools, and we're still out there skating them. So I like to skate with the guys that have been skating pools for like 3 or 4 decades, you know, because it just gives you a feeling for like, you know, kind of where it started and where it's at now. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think where skateboarding's at today is part of the evolution of skateboarding. You know, there's everything's changed. You know, everything's going to change. Nothing's going to stay the same ever, and especially something as radical and as progressive as skateboarding. So I love where it's at, because I think that from the beginning, I never imagined or I never dreamed that it would be where it's at now, and I'm really proud of like the progression and the I think just the state of the art, you know, as far as I'm concerned for skateboarding, is that anything's possible still. And that's kind of where it was at for us, even when we were kids, because Larry Bertelman was like our favorite surfer, and the way that he used to surf was the way that we wanted to skate. So I still go by that, you know, the motto that anything's possible, you know, and just the fact that, you know, a lot of guys like myself can be 40, 50 years old and still be skating all this really like progressive terrain and riding like boards that we design ourselves and everything, and having like, you know, our own signature shoes and just stuff like that. I think it's amazing, you know, and I just think that, you know, there's no limit to what can be done with skateboarding. There's no rules. There's no like guidelines other than just get on a board and ride. And that's the thing that's so beautiful about skateboarding for me, is that just like with surfing, it can be a spiritual experience. It just depends on where your heart and where your mind and where your soul, you know, everything comes together sometimes when you're just riding, you know. You're not really thinking about anything, you're just doing it. I think just the freedom of just being able to just roll around and just like skate the streets and like, looking over people's like fences and finding pools, all the big reservoirs and the drainage ditches and all the stuff that we used to skate. A lot of that stuff's been speed bumped, and it's like illegal, and like, you know, like there's a lot of like society's become aware of what skateboarders are up to, you know, kind of. So there's been a lot of obstacles lately. So I think that's what I miss more than anything, is that the purity, the simplicity, and the freedom that we had when we were skating in the 60s and 70s. It's not been lost, but it's rare. It's like a strange fruit, you know. You look for it everywhere, but it's not that it doesn't exist. It's still out there. You just got to look for it, you know. The main thing I'd say to the kids is just have fun. I mean, it's not really about all the material wealth and all the trophies and all the money and stuff. I mean, when I was a kid, that's what I wanted to, so I really can't say that I didn't, at one point in my career, work towards those goals. But you know, there's a fine line between ambition and greed. You know, and I think that when you become a little bit greedy and you start to go on the material path instead of like just having fun, I think you get away from the spiritual, you know. And like I said before, I think that the main way to have fun and the main way to stay connected to what skateboarding is really all about is to kind of keep it like, you know, really like fun and enjoyable, and not take yourself too seriously, you know, because that takes the fun out of anything. Like music, surfing, skateboarding, art, like anything like that. When you get too serious about it and you're only doing it for the power and for the money and to be like the, you know, the best instead of just to be one of like a worker among workers, I think the best thing to do is just have fun. Don't try to be the top dog all the time, you know. But it sounds weird coming from me, because I was the one that kind of started that whole ambitious, you know, aggressive, egotistical type of like personality that skateboarders have, you know. But I think it just changes as you get older. You realize really why you love your life and what you love to do is so important to you, and it's because of the fact that, you know, it's fun.